Another episode of Reclaiming Timeless Ways getting underway. Mike Traster, he's taking notes, getting everything fired up. The cells are firing upstairs to bring some more information to you. I'm Simon Fuller. We're so glad to have you along with us. And on to another episode, Mike.
Yeah. As God is my witness.
Whew.
Yeah. These are stories, you know, things happen in life and they sort of punctuate your take on things. And it just like you're on this road and it's absolutely laser straight. Nothing changing, right? It's like what you would imagine a highway in the middle of nowhere, Kansas to be, right? Flat, straight, unyielding, hot sun, nothing, right? And then all of a sudden, you turn a couple of degrees and, you know, you're in a canyon or something. It's like this one little thing happens, but it's not little.
Yeah.
And it changes your perspective.
Okay.
You know? So a bunch of those. When I was in high school, I had a history teacher, and I was in a wrestling team for a while. I had, unbeknownst to myself, beat the living crap out of one of the star wrestlers in gym class.
So they said you're coming out. So they said you're coming out for wrestling.
Yeah, which I really didn't want. And my hands never were happy. They were like arthritic. So I did it for a while, but I stopped. But my history teacher showed up there one day and he's grinning at me. I was very strong from lifting and gymnastics. And so he smiles at me and he goes, "You want to wrestle?" And I look at him. He's this pudgy little guy with an eye that kind of moves off and a little bit of a lisp. And no, I'm not going to wrestle with you. He goes, "Why not?" I said, "I'll beat you." He goes, "You want to bet?" And I look at him and I remember feeling this queasy feeling in my gut. Like, there's something to this guy. I can't see it. And he's just got this little smile. He liked me a lot. You know,
Right.
I was like one of his favorite students. He was a great teacher, but I'm like, nah, I don't want to wrestle. Figured he's got something.
Yeah, what's he up to here?
I'm going to get slaughtered by this guy, right? So anyway.
Yeah, you'll later find out he competed in the Olympics or something.
Anyway, one of my friend's kid brothers got himself just crazy. A lot of trouble. And I try to help him in some ways later on. But he shows up, some girl jilted him, and he went nuts. And he showed up at the high school with a 12-gauge shotgun, loaded for bear, and gonna kill her. No question.
Jeepers.
He was committed to it. And he shows up, and this guy, we'll call him Mr. W, the same guy that wanted to wrestle with me, sees him. He's out in the parking lot, walking around slow, like he's always slow, with that lazy eye. And I didn't see this, but it was told to me. And as a matter of fact, it was told to me by his department head, who was a dear friend of mine for 50 years. And he sees the kid, Tommy. Tommy's since passed. It was a very tragic life. And he leaps over a car and disarms him in midair. Never had a chance to fire a shot. Just mind-boggling. You know, it's like, what in the hell was in that guy? I think he had some kind of special ops training in the Navy.
Yeah.
Because he would talk about things he saw on an aircraft carrier, but there was much more he didn't talk about than that he did. You know, so apparently that little smile of his was, you know, I'm the death angel. Want to dance?
Yeah.
So I had an unusual moment of wisdom. But he saved one or more lives that day. And I'll remember he wasn't tenured yet. And I remember my friend, who was the head of the department, said to me, he earned his tenure that day.
Yeah.
Hero. Absolute hero. Just mind-boggling. So, very brave man, incredibly tough, very kind man, very smart, amazing sense of humor, and a great communicator, really encouraging teacher. But underneath was a whole box of dynamite. But he was a gentleman, you know. And what was it? I think it was that philosopher Peterson. He said a strong man is somebody that can kill you but won't.
Yeah.
You know. You know. So an amazing experience. It was a couple years later before the kid finally flipped out and wound up permanently hospitalized. I kept him at my house for a while, for a couple weeks, to try to straighten him out. Didn't do any good. He was lost.
Yeah.
It was very sad. He wound up coming down with MS, and it took him, you know. So me and a bunch of kids used to hang out, another story, and there was this road down the middle of my town called Town Line Road. And we were talking in my yard one day, and somebody said, they were driving down the road, and they said, do you ever look outside and see how much garbage is down on Town Line Road? And somebody said, really? Somebody else said, oh man, it's disgusting, you know. And so I don't remember. I think we went out there with a couple of cars and looked around, and it was like a dump. Wherever there was like open property, there was like dead animals and garbage cans and tires. I think there was a washing machine. It was unbelievable. So we decided, we live here, you know, we have free time, let's fix it. So I had a pickup truck, an old 67 Ford F100, and we just got out there. It was 2 or 3 cars of us, and we started putting stuff in the truck and driving it to the dump. I think at the time the dump was free,
Okay.
which was nice. One of the old things in a civilized world, right? And hear that, bureaucrats? So anyway, we started loading the truck up. And we made probably 3 or 4 or 5 loads, working by hand, right? So this big burly guy shows up in a pickup truck, and he comes straddling over. He's like 2 of us, and he goes, what are you guys doing? I said, we're cleaning the road. He goes, oh, really? How come? We live here. We just felt like it. You're not getting paid? No. Oh, I'll be back. Okay, so we didn't know what to think of that. So 30 minutes or so later, he shows up. I think it was a different truck with a trailer behind him, and on the trailer was a loader, right? But it was like a dump truck. And so he gets out, he pulls the loader off the dump truck, and he starts pulling tons of garbage out from the side of the road and putting it in his dump truck. So he worked with us for the day, right? And while we were doing this, I stepped on a board and put a rusty nail in my foot, and it hurt, you know. So one of the kids we were working with said, well, I know this doctor, Dr. Rubel, and he goes, he'll fix you up. So we go over there, and he introduces me to him. He's a little Austrian fella, and he goes, so what happened to you? And I said, well, I stepped on a nail while I was cleaning the road. He goes, oh, workman's comp. He goes, so who's your boss? I said, oh, I don't have a boss. He goes, what do you mean? You're working on the road. You gotta have a boss. I said, well, actually, we're just doing it for free. He goes, really? I said, yeah. He goes, you do it for free? I do it for free. So he cleans my foot, gives me a tetanus shot. I think he put a Band-Aid and some meds on it. No charge. It was so cool,
Yeah.
you know. It was,
One event led to the next.
yeah. We never saw the guy with the dump truck again, but he was inspired. So he probably got 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 times as much.
Right, with that equipment.
Oh, man, I mean, it's like we were ants and he was an elephant, you
Right.
know? It was incredible. So both of those people were inspired by this little act of goodness that we were trying to get accomplished, and they made it bigger
Yeah.
than we were able to, you know? So that was kind of fun. So that was another one. There was one, I was working at a hospital in Boston, still there. It's on Harrison Avenue. Anyway, I was working in a pediatric floor. This is before I became a nurse. So we had like, I don't know, 80, 100 hours of training. And there's this kid, this is a little Chinese kid, and he's in a mist tent, so he's got some kind of respiratory illness. And you had to like put on a mask and a gown and gloves, because it was, you know, it was a serious respiratory infection. So he's inside this tent, and there's a machine in there, like a vaporizer, keeping the air clean to keep his lungs open so he could spit out mucus. And he can't speak English. And he is by himself, and he's terrified. So I come in there, and he just loses his shit. And he starts screaming. He's about 8 years old. And this young doctor comes in. Yes, typical city boy, he's kind of very smart, very bookish, but spoiled, mama, papa boy, you know, but probably got straight A's in school. And he comes in, he sees the kid screaming, and he starts screaming at the kid to shut up. I'm looking at him, and I'm like, what in the hell are you doing? He goes, I'm shutting him up. So I grabbed him, and I spun him around, and I pushed him out of the room. I said, don't come back in. You know, it's just going to make the kid demonstrably worse.
Right.
So I'm standing there, and I'm looking at this kid that's like half crazy from terror, and he has no connection because he's stuck in this thing. He's by himself. His parents aren't there. No friends, no relatives, and no English. So I had to figure out like sign language to get him to calm down. I think I showed him how to breathe, you know, breathe in, breathe out, close your eyes, that kind of thing. It's okay. You know, I just kept repeating like one word and then doing like a little symbolic gesture. So the gesture became a functional word. And there's only like maybe 4 or 5 or 6 little terms, and I just went through them, spent a couple of minutes. You know, I swear, in that couple of minutes, this isolated, terrified kid calmed down, and I didn't have any more issues. He was okay. He was able to control himself after that. So it was like that little moment of focused communication where I cared about him, got him back.
Yeah.
He was out of control. He was like moving in the direction of having like a psychotic episode.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, body language, tone, body language, hand gestures, your face. If you're looking at it like that, you're mirroring their panic, and it's going to multiply it. You know, so for me it was instinctive. I thought I'm up Schitt's Creek because I just physically shoved this doctor out of the room. Well, the doctor knew that he effed up, so apparently he never said a word to anyone.
He went on about his day and said, okay.
He didn't tell on himself because that's, I think, how it would have worked
Yeah.
out. You know, so that was another one. This one was a little metaphysical. I was running. I was never a good runner, but I liked it in spite of being not good. I was up around 6, 7 miles, I guess, for the day. And I was tired and it was hot. I was down in Copley Square, one street off of the main street. I think was Boylston. I don't remember what the street was, but it was a street with a bunch of like 3- and 4-story brick apartment buildings. Kind of a nice street. And I'm running, but I'm miserable because I'm just overheated and thirsty. And I start feeling sorry for myself. And I remember thinking, I should be running. I caught my attitude and I said to myself, well, what if I look at it differently and I say to myself, how about if I run for those that can't run?
Yeah.
Those words, right? So that was it. So that, I think I slowed down a little, which helped. And then I ran maybe four or five more houses down, and there's this legless guy sitting on the steps in front of one of these buildings, and he's got this shirt on, this T-shirt, and it's right after I had this thought, and it said, "Dance for those who can't dance."
Huh.
Yeah, and it was like, you know, C.G. Jung wrote a book about it called Synchronicity, when things are connected. Amazing book. But boy, that really got my attention.
Yeah.
You know, it still pops into my head every now and then. That was what, maybe 1973. You know,
Just a few years ago.
yeah, it's crazy long time ago. I can't believe it. So, I'll do one more and then maybe we can close this one out.
Okay.
But we could do like 3 of these, I think.
You got a lot of "as God is my witness" stories, don't you, Mike?
I do.
You have lived some experiences.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
Because it breathes life back
Yep.
into you.
Well, it
No.
shaped a lot of these shows that we've done. A lot of what you've seen, good and bad, have helped you determine what you believe to be, again, the ideal society. That's where this all started. You know,
Right.
reclaiming timeless ways, those ways where people helping people, caring about people, taking care of people.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, just, it's like you stop and you look and you go, can I do something decent here?
These are a lot of stories showcasing that, and then there's other stories we've heard along these 70 some odd shows where you've seen the flaws in that and want to point them out. If we don't talk about them, don't see them, don't point them out, we're inevitably going to continue on and duplicate if we don't
Fester.
stop and think, wait a minute.
Yeah, they fester too.
Yeah.
It's like a filthy wound,
Yeah.
you know? So I was moving from Southern California to Michigan. We got this old shitbox of a Mercury Comet station wagon. It's chugging along, but it's having a hard time. We're going up this road called the Grapevine, and it's this massive hill that it seems to go on for a light year. I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was 10 or 20 miles. I don't know. But it was like, it was so steep and so long, and it was so hot out that it was scary. You know, I'd never been on the road before, and it wasn't a powerful car. It was an old 6-cylinder, and I think the car was like 17 long years old. Not, it wasn't well taken care of. And we had a big container of water, like 4 or 5 gallons, just in case. So we get about halfway up, and I think it started getting a little hot. I don't remember if there was a light or a gauge, but it started steaming. We finally get to the top. I stopped, I put some water in it, go to this junkyard, and I told the guy, so we got a bad radiator. So he goes, I'll sell you another one for $25. So this is like 77 and 78. So he sells me the radiator. I go out, I open the hood, and I go to put it in, it's the wrong radiator. So I go back, it's closed. Nobody there, locked up. We're out in the middle of nowhere, it's a hot day, it's like 5:30 in the afternoon, and I don't know what to do. So the radiator is still hooked up, still got some water in it. So I get back on the road, the side road where the junkyard is. We go up maybe a half a mile and find another junkyard. And the guy is, you know, the chain link fence that has the wheels on it that
Yeah,
close?
yeah.
So he's got one of them with the wheels, and he's closing it. And he's a big guy. It looked like he could have been a pro football player.
Sure.
Just immense. And he goes, can I help you? And I said, well, I see you're closing and I don't want to interfere with your evening. And he goes, it's not a problem. I said, really, are you sure? I said, because this might take a while. He goes, what's the problem? He goes, push it in. Or I drove it in, I pushed it, I don't remember. So I get the car inside and he opens up the hood. And I said, well, we had a problem with the radiator and the guy sold me one that didn't fit. He goes, I'll swap you even. I said, really? He said, yeah, no problem. I said, I don't want to interfere with your evening. How about we do it in the morning? Can we just stay in your parking lot? He goes, no, we'll do it now. I said, thank you very much. So he comes out, brings a new radiator with him, and it doesn't fit. It's the wrong hoses. So he adapts the hoses, right? And I said, sir, I only have a little bit of money, just barely enough to get to Michigan. And he goes, don't worry about it. I'll treat you right. And I said, okay, thank you. So he fixes up the radiator and he starts the car and he goes, shut it off. He says, you have a problem. I said, what's that? And he goes, your engine mounts are no good. He goes, your motor, instead of just moving a little bit from the starting, is shifting like several inches. You're going to put the fan through the radiator and you're going to be completely screwed. I'm like, oh my God. So I said, well, what can we do? And he goes, my brother-in-law's got a parts place downtown. I'll call him at home and he'll bring us some engine mounts. I said, how much is that going to be? He goes, not very much. So he brings them and he goes, I'll put them in for you. And I said, well, okay, but please, you know, my finances are minute. So he goes, it's just going to be $8 for the parts. And you already swapped me for the radiator. Don't worry about the hoses. Meanwhile, he had given us a beer, right? And so it gets done. It's like probably 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
It's been about 4 hours. And we're done. And he looks at me and goes, oh, you're all set? And I said, well, what can I do for you? He goes, well, you don't owe me anything. You gave me $8. And we swapped the radiators fair and square. I'm like, you've been very kind to me. I said, I need to do something back. He goes, okay, I'll tell you what. He goes, I want you to do 2 things for me. I said, okay. He goes, here's my business card. When you get where you're going, let me know that you arrived in one piece. I said, I can do that. And I did. And I said, what else? And he said, do something good for somebody else.
Yeah.
And then he looked at me. I would say he was about 6'2", 6'3", 375 pounds.
Big guy.
Oh my God. He had a big old gut on him, but his hands were like 2 hands. You know, it was huge. And he looked at me and he said something very simple. He said, I used to like to hurt people. He said, now I love people, or I help them, something like that. He said, I found God. Now I like to be kind to people. No theology. No, I'm a Baptist, or I'm a Lutheran, or I'm a Methodist, or a Catholic. None of it. Just, I used to hurt people, now I like to love people and help them. That was it. And you could see in this bear of a human being, there was this gentle light in his eyes.
Yeah.
That was,
Pretty cool story.
yeah.
In many ways, I'm sure there was more than that, but a piece of this story of this show. obviously you've been living that,
In little ways,
trying to do good things for others.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, part one of As God Is Mike's Witness.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Until next time, have a great day.